Mobilers, good evening and welcome to Mozambique, BTS bringing telecoms to the skies. On the 9th of October 2023 at 8 a.m. UTC, we made history by successfully launching Africa's first commercial telecoms Aerostat near Massingir, Mozambique. Tonight, we are going behind the scenes of that record-breaking launch. We're going to speak with members of the World Mobile Aerostat launch team, hearing about and understanding the overarching problems with connectivity that we're seeking to solve, the vision behind World Mobile's innovative Aerostat solution, the international planning that underpinned this successful launch, the regulations and how we worked with partners to deliver on the ground in Mozambique, the journey that both the Aerostat itself and the team took in getting to Massingir, for weeks of preparation for the launch itself, and of course, together, we as a community are going to share in that momentous, historic launch moment. And if that's not enough, we'll end tonight's event with an open AMA with senior members of the Aerostat launch team, where you can get your questions about the operations in Mozambique answered. I'm Mike Blake Crawford, one of your live event hosts. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Sit back, get comfortable. It's time for the main event.
Still half the world is unconnected.
There's a lot of untapped, unrealized talent that actually exists all over the world.
We believe that every single human on this planet has the right to access the internet to contribute to the world at large.
We're saying we want to go after the unconnected, and it is actually feasible.
We're doing things that other people won't do because they're locked into existing ways of doing things. So we're taking an innovative approach to build a new network.
What does it mean for the people on the ground? What does it mean for the unconnected? It means everything. It's a brand new world. It's a world of opportunities. It's a world of identity. It's a world where we can all be equal.
We're bringing tether balloons, wireless mesh, a new dynamic mobile network, and you're bringing them all together into this new way of doing things. Nobody's done it before.
This is an ideal worth sacrificing for. This is an ideal worth fighting for. In whichever way it takes, we will make sure that we provide a model to connect the unconnected. Because we really are stronger connected.
It is an absolute honor to share this moment with all of you. I'm joined right now by none other than Mickey Watkins, the CEO of World Mobile. Now, Mickey, before we unravel the incredible stories and insights into Mozambique and bringing telecoms to the skies, I have to ask, how are you feeling in this remarkable moment?
It's been a long time coming. We've been waiting a long time for this, and this is something that's very special to me personally, but for the sharing economy, for the community, and for everyone involved, I think it's a massive achievement. So I'm very happy.
So let's kick things off with a big question. Why are we all here today? Can you give us a bit of an overview of what makes this launch in Mozambique so monumental?
We're flying high. This is it. This is the moment we've been waiting for. You know, we were down on the ground for a long time in Zanzibar, and this was a struggle for everybody. But this is the moment that we can show how we connect the unconnected. This is the moment where we demonstrate what we can do pan-Africa in the continent And this is the moment where we can also look at the rest of the world and show that aerostats are a solution for connecting the so many people that still don't have internet.
So while this is such a huge accomplishment for our whole community, as the founder of World Mobile, what does this moment mean to you?
Such a great question. What does it mean? There was a lot of pressure all around on the team to deliver this. You know, we wanted to deliver this, not just because we said we would deliver this, but we wanted to deliver this because we wanted to do something that was so new. I don't like to use the word revolutionary, but I like to use the word modern. And this is the new way to connect the unconnected, and delivering for our community, delivering for our partners, and delivering for the world, for everybody that could see there is a way to connect everybody. And it's just not right that half the world is unconnected. And it's not right that half the world can't share art, culture, or even speak to the other half the world. So for me, this is the beginning of something very special where everyone could be connected and we leave no man, woman, or child behind.
Mickey, I'm sure many people are curious about the journey that led to the significant milestone, being Africa's first commercial telecoms aerostat. Can you give the community a behind-the-scenes picture of the selection process and some insights into what it really took to make all this happen?
So as everybody knows, Zanzibar, we were waiting quite some time. Whilst we were waiting, we had a lot of countries that approached us to come and install the aerostat and to come and fly the aerostat. There were tears, there was sweat, there was blood. It was a very, very difficult 11 months. But finally, we're very, very happy to have arrived in Mozambique, to have successfully launched in Mozambique, and to have the full support of the regulator, the GSMA Foundry, and also the ITU.
So this is truly a story of determination. So I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into Mozambique. Could you give us some more insight into the country? What are we hoping to learn through this aerostat launch there?
We want to connect everyone everywhere. Mozambique has a very unconnected population. The existing mobile network operators have done a great job so far, but with legacy business models and legacy infrastructure, it's just impossible for them to connect the unconnected. So what we want to learn is the data sets that we're gathering. We want to see the usage on the network. We want to see mobile money transactions. We want to see schools connected. We want to see people being able to educate themselves online rather than just offline. And we want to take the African entrepreneurial spirit to the next level. Some could say flying high.
Absolutely. That is an exciting journey to be on. And I have to say, you've often emphasized on the collaborative effort needed to achieve global connectivity. Can you highlight how this launch brings us one step closer to achieving a people-powered network as the solution to connecting billions?
Collaboration is the only way. I've said it before, you know, Facebook, Microsoft, Google, the 850 mobile network operators in the world, they haven't been able to do it alone. So whilst this aerostat has been commissioned and is running by World Mobile, eventually we believe that a community, a sharing economy, will be able to own this particular aerostat or other aerostats, and they'll be able to support in connecting the unconnected. But it's not just the sharing economy. It's also the partners involved. It's also the regulators involved. It's everybody involved. This can't happen alone. And although we've brought some fantastic technology to the continent, and it's a first, we're super, super excited to have collaborated with everybody and to have actually got this far. Nobody's ever done this before.
That is absolutely true. What an incredible journey it has been so far. It's, you know, this is absolutely, from the sounds of it, we're just getting started. And that's very exciting for so many people, including mobilers. And that wraps up our conversation. Thank you so much for your time, Mickey. We're really looking forward to catching up with you on the AMA.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And as you said, you know, this does feel like a massive achievement, but it's just the beginning of something even bigger. And I look forward to launching more aerostats with the community, with partners, and also speaking to you about the wonderful things that we've been doing.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. Joining us now is Alan Omnett, the COO of World Mobile, who'll be helping us make sense of all the moving parts and shed a light at World Mobile's novel approach. Alan, thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here.
Alan, your background in telecoms is quite impressive. Can you share more details about it and explain the importance of World Mobile's innovations?
Sure. I mean, my background in telecoms is about challenging legacy models, so that's infrastructure or business models. It's probably earliest stage when I left university was challenging the sort of BTs and cable and wireless of the world who had very fixed models. And, if you're able to provide a telecommunications solution that is more flexible, you deliver it faster, you give the customer what they want, and you use the latest innovation, then you can get ahead of what the current operators are doing. So, I've done everything from writing software, building systems, OSS systems, through to running mobile services, mobile networks, working with the Vodafones of the world to deliver mobile connectivity, working with Microsoft Skype in their sort of delivery of services to other carriers across the world. So background, yes, I kind of know a bit about the industry and where the problems are, and that's where it's really about how you solve these key industry problems that seem to be there for a long time. So yeah, I mean, my view is that there's innovation that comes out, but then how do you apply that to an industry as a whole? Yeah. So I went to this conference in London, which was this blockchain in telecoms conference, and you had the regulators, you had the operators trying to figure out how to use blockchain, which is this at the time, it's like 6 years ago, it was a new concept. And I realized at that point that they were not going to evolve quickly enough for the opportunity. And I saw that really, if you try and educate the existing operators and infrastructure players on how to do it, it's never going to happen. You have to go and do it yourself. So that from that point, we realized, okay, look, let's do this. We're going to have to show people how this is done and work with the players once we've done it ourselves on how they can then join this sharing economy, because this is World Mobile working with both the community on one level and also the existing operators on how they go further, because when we all work together, then you can achieve this goal that Mickey set out of connecting 1 billion people by 2030. This is not something that one company can do on their own. It's the whole sharing economy that is needed to work together to achieve it.
So Alan, you mentioned going to an event in London where other telecoms professionals were talking about the utilization of blockchain. What were your impressions and how did you feel World Mobile also fits into that?
Yeah, it was, in early days of blockchain, and I think there were a lot of misconceptions at the time. I think people were looking at approaches of how they could use it for their billing system or, to fit it into their existing business models. And I think what they didn't realize is that actually it fundamentally changed the business model. And I think that was definitely a fear at the time. So, we realized that for us to launch a service and a solution that had a sharing economy and to enable shared ownership, one of the key things that you needed was this trust and transparency and immutability that you get from a blockchain solution. Because when people are looking at being rewarded for their infrastructure, they need to make sure that they're going to receive those rewards and receive them on a regular basis and not be disputing. It had to be something that was built into the fabric of the solution. So I think that was one of the key things that we found was being missed at the time.
you mentioned that traditional telecoms often also struggle to connect the unconnected. So why do you think that is, and what sets Well Mobile apart in that?
Love your tough questions. So I think why have they not achieved it? Look, you've got over 800 mobile operators across the world who have tried to solve the problem. Not that they haven't tried hard, it is a difficult problem to solve, but when the first goal was to connect the cities and the urban areas and the dense populations, when you're talking about connecting, 95% of the population, if you target the urban areas first, it's an easier problem to solve. And in terms of the margins that they make in the dense urban areas, they're higher. So I think one of the problems is that traditional approach where you have this profit-driven motive, which is how companies work. Number one. Number two, there's innovation. So the way the industry's been formed is you have the people who innovate the hardware layer and the technology. That's one set of people. And then the service providers delivering to the customer, another set of companies. And they're kind of waiting for the innovation from the hardware providers, and that has sort of held back the industry in some respects. So they're kind of waiting for the innovators to come up with the solutions. So what we've done is we've taken approaches where the problems are. We focus for rural connectivity. You need to take a different approach. You've got to start the other way around. You've got to flip the model around and say, okay, well, how do we help the rural areas to get connected first before we go into the cities? And when you do that, you look at things from a different perspective and a different approach. So it's kind of like flipping the way you think about things to achieve a different goal. Now, what you then find is that, what we found in one of our villages that we deployed to is when you actually go to a village that has had no connectivity and they're at the end of the world, and they're the last place that any mobile operator will go to, economically, and you provide a service that the community can own and earn from. What you find is that actually attracts, well, first of all, you have the cost of acquisition, which is much lower, because just having connectivity, it's an easy sell. People just use it. You don't have to try and compete with 3 or 4 other operators. So, that changes the whole business model. But secondly, you then attract people out to the rural areas because they're like, hey, why has this village got connectivity? I'm going there. So you end up driving business the other way around. So in both, the way you approach the business model and the customer acquisition, it's kind of reverse from how existing operators currently do it.
Thank you so much, Alan, for sharing your insights into the innovative world of Well Mobile. It's clear that it's really paving the way for a more inclusive and connected future. We really appreciate your time with us. We look forward to seeing you later at the AMA. Thank you, Alan. The countdown to launch continues. We now have 2 very special guests for you. We're joined by Well Mobile operations team, Magnus Kelly, the Vice President of Country Operations, and Robert Magembe, the Director of Country Operations. Magnus, Robert, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you both here. Before we start, I'd really like to acknowledge the remarkable recent accomplishment in Mozambique. Congratulations to both of you. So while I have you, Robert, can you tell us a little bit about Massingir and the surrounding area near our Aerostat?
Sure. About the privilege of being there and going out to our site. Massingir is about 220 miles from the capital city of Maputo. That's about 350 kilometers. It's in a province called the Gaza province, southwestern of Mozambique. It's very dry and dusty, but there's a dam right next to it, actually close to where our team is staying, which is very, very pretty. And it's also close to the Limpopo National Park, And the site where we've chosen, there's a little village there. There's a school. There's a community, and agriculture is very key to the people around that area. They grow stuff like cassava and sweet potatoes, and we have electricity in the area which we are using, but it's one of the things that is lacking, just like connectivity.
This is bringing telecoms from the skies. You know, there's a lot of firsts for World Mobile, but also telecoms in general. Could you tell us a little bit more about what the regulatory process has been within the process of this launch?
Sure. Yeah, so we had to first identify the different regulatory bodies that we needed to engage, and this being a new technology, there was a lot of education and discussions that we had to have with the different bodies, where we talk about World Mobile's vision and the plan to use aerostats as cell phone towers. So lots of meetings and sessions, but eventually, once everyone was aligned, it then became that much easier. Once they understood that we're trying to build a telecom tower in the sky, I think then, the conversations from there just became that much easier. But if I have to say, it's the education part, where just getting everyone on board to understand what exactly we're trying to achieve here.
So, Magnus, can you share some insights on some of the major logistical challenges we faced, but also what were the processes of overcoming these challenges so that we can get this goal achieved?
Of course, I would say, first of all, persistence would be the overarching, right? If it's easy, try harder, and eventually it will come good. But we went through a whole variety of logistical challenges. To get an aerostat into the sky, you need a number of items to come together, to converge at the right point in time. So first, you need to have helium, which may sound easy, but it's not easy getting it into effectively the middle of a very rural area. We had to get the ground station, and we transported it by land over through, I think, 3 countries. We also had to navigate and understand the customs procedures for each land border, and the duty payable, which took some time. We also understood the time it takes on very poor infrastructure in terms of roads, of transportation, and we dealt with the consequences of the fact that the roads were so rough that there was some structural damage to the ground station on arrival, which then led to finding local welders to repair some of the physical vibration damage that we dealt with. We then have dealt with the trials and tribulations of having the accommodation about 40 kilometers from the actual site, and just making sure that we have the staff on duty at all times. But I'd say that the other pieces of the puzzle include having the local community support, which was important. Obviously, we needed to acquire the land, but more importantly, we wanted to make sure that the local community was on side in terms of explaining to them the benefits. Again, Robert pointed out, but it comes back to education. We also needed to have both the telecoms regulator informed and supportive, in addition to having the permissions from the aviation authorities for what is effectively a large object in the sky, that thus needs to be announced to anyone involved in aviation. And so we had to have them issue a notice to all airmen, which was done. And all of that had to come together at the right moment in time, in order to facilitate the actual, what you see is the tip of the iceberg, which is the gentle lifting of the aerostat into the sky.
So my last question is for both of you, starting with Robert, then Magnus. During the planning process, what is one key takeaway or lesson that you feel like is invaluable for future launches or operations?
I think for me, it's been building those relationships early on, even before we get into the country. Just forge those relationships with the right entities, the right people, because it just makes it that much easier when you're on the ground, and you need to set up a team.
Thank you, Robert. Magnus?
assume nothing. Would be my my candid input. Many projects is just common sense, but don't make assumptions, particularly when remote communication is involved. Check and validate that there was a crystal clear acknowledgement of what was said, what was received, and the dates involved.
Yeah, I think that that's a very interesting insight in terms of, as a project that is also based on Web3, there's a lot that goes on online, but also seeing things on the ground, the relationships that we're building and what we're able to accomplish is quite a different process than a lot of us are used to. So yeah, thank you so much for that insight. So yeah, that's it. Robert, Magnus, I really want to express my heartfelt gratitude to you both for your invaluable insights and sharing your experiences with us today. It's been such a pleasure having you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah.
I'm now joined by Mike Lele, the VP of Regulatory Affairs here at World Mobile. Mike will be providing us with insights into the regulatory intricacies around our launch. He's joining us all the way from our site in Mozambique. Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Hannah, for having me.
To start with, can you tell us a little bit about your role here at World Mobile?
Well, I'm the Vice President responsible for regulatory affairs. And in this role, I act more or less as the interface between the company and the regulators in the different countries of interest. As you know, regulation is probably the main framework through which mobile operators or private companies enter the market. So understanding the regulatory environment in a particular country is critical and important. But we also need to understand that regulation is not static. It keeps changing, more so in the telecommunications industry, which is driven so much by changes in technology, changes in the structure of the sector. So understanding the impact of those changes in particular markets is very, very critical. So one of my role is to monitor those trends, to understand the driving forces behind those trends, and also to act as interface, as an advocacy role, as well for private sector operations in different countries. We need to understand that regulation itself, even if it is country specific, it operates within a global and regional frameworks, dictated by institutions such as ITU, GSMA, regional bodies, and so forth. So we need to be sure that at every point in time, we follow the trends. So that's really my role there. I would call it, if you want to summarize, the interface between the company and the regulatory environment in the different markets.
Well, that's a very interesting role. And you mentioned the ITU, and I'd like to ask, can you shed a little light about your background and experience with the International Telecommunications Union, which is the ITU? This is a specialized agency of the United Nations responsible for many matters, including bridging the digital divide. And I'd like to know, how has it influenced your approach to regulatory matters?
Oh, okay. I spent 22 years in ITU. The first 7 years I was based in Africa, in Nairobi, overseeing a capacity development project, which involved actually working very, very closely with regulators. That was a time in the early 2000s when regulation was a new thing in the telecommunications sector. So most regulators were young, just been established, trying to understand their role, the interfacing with the private sector. So my role really was to support regulators to get up on their feet and strengthen them. So we were dealing a lot with the capacity development projects. Then I then moved to headquarters in Geneva, and I continued playing the same role, interfacing with the private sector, with the regulators, with the policymakers, mainly in the area of capacity development. So that gave me a lot of exposure to the challenges that regulators face, also to the priorities that we need to focus on if we wanted to make the regulators more effective. So this is a role that is really helped me now in my new role in World Mobile, because I get to know exactly the trends in regulation. I get to know the challenges that regulators face. I get to know the regulators themselves, because most of them we worked with very, very closely. So that's how regulation and my past experience in ITU actually sort of work hand in glove.
So if we can jump into our launch in Mozambique, Mike, how have you fostered collaboration with regulatory bodies there and the stakeholders to lay the foundation for our launch in Mozambique?
That's an interesting question, Hannah. I think it's all driven by alignment. Most regulators have a mission to connect the populations in their country. World Mobile is driven by one ambition, to connect the unconnected. And that's where World Mobile's mission also is aligned to the mission of the ITU development sector, to connect the unconnected. So when it comes to Mozambique, our entry point was made so much easier by the strength of our relationship with the regulator, with INCM. INCM embraced us because they knew what we wanted to come and do. We were coming here to help them connect the unconnected. Our focus has very much been in rural areas, rural connectivity. And if you knew anything about the demographics of Mozambique and the telecommunications industry here, you will actually understand why Mozambique embraced us and why we embraced Mozambique. We embraced Mozambique for various reasons. One of them being that the regulator is very positive in their mindset. They're very open to new innovation. They want to focus their eyes on the ultimate price, that is to connect the unconnected. And they have expressed very openly that they will listen to any solutions that provide the connectivity to their people. So this is how we managed to then rope in other stakeholders in the initiatives that we are working with.
That's it for me. A big thank you to you, Mike Mosele, for being on the show with us today. You have shared so many valuable insights and expertise. We truly appreciate your contribution to the Mozambique launch.
Hello, World Mobilers. This is Gregory Gotti, Head of Aerial Platforms at World Mobile. I've just checked in with 2 huge suitcases in Dubai, where I'm based, and I'm heading off on a very exciting and really important journey for World Mobile. So, here we are in Dubai, heading to the gate, and the plan is to have several weeks of flight operations in Mozambique. Dubai is a big airport, as many of you will know, and I'm hoping that I'll get to gate D26 on time. It's raining in Maputo, which is fantastic for me coming from Dubai because it never happens. Here is Kevin. Kevin, say hello.
Hi, everybody.
There's Kevin Watson, and here we are at Maputo Airport, loading up, getting ready to go up to our site. Welcome to the journey to the test site. We've got 5 hours of driving ahead of us. It's going to be a long day, but once we get there, we can relax in the hotel and wait for everything to start happening tomorrow. We've had a good night's sleep after that amazing drive we did yesterday. Wow, what a drive it was. So hopefully we'll be able to get out to the site in the next hour, which is about half an hour's drive from the accommodation, and then we'll all be good. Here we are at the site, just giving you a quick view of what the site looks like before much preparation has been done. This will be transformed over the next 24 hours into a full-scale operational site. We're just deciding which trees are in the way, so we move the center of the site accordingly. Be the right distance from the water tower and from the villagers' huts that are here.
Hi, so we are joined right now with Gregory Gottlieb, the head of aerial platforms at World Mobile, to talk to us a little bit about the preparation phase of the Aerostat launch. Welcome, Gregory.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Well, I have to tell you that although I'm in deepest Africa, right near the Limpopo River, where it's normally actually beautiful sunshine, today it's absolutely freezing.
Oh no.
So I'm wearing a pullover and a raincoat because it might rain again shortly. And this is not what we all signed up for when we came. But it's fine. We'll make it work.
So we've just watched a vlog of your journey, and it was absolutely amazing. Can you share with us, what was it like for you? Was it how you expected it to be?
Look, I'll be very honest. There have been some very emotional moments on this project, unlike most of the projects I've been involved with in the past, because as is the case for so many of us at World Mobile, we're doing this because it's the right thing to do. It's going to change people's lives. It's going to help their own personal circumstances all over parts of the world that are underserved at the moment.
Absolutely. And beyond that, the mission of why we do what we do, this is also a very unique experience where a majority of our team is working remotely. And as we've seen, we've got quite an international team on the ground. So how is that for you? What has that process been like for you? What are do you have any memorable experiences you'd like to share from that?
Suffice it to say that even though not all of us speak a common language, we've all been experienced at working with Aerostats, and the opportunity to come here and make this Aerostat succeed in its mission has brought us all together in ways that you would not have imagined.
Wow, that's really interesting. And you mentioned about having to add helium into the Aerostat. So for some of us who are, not Aerostat technicians or operators, can you, in order for us to understand the process of the Aerostat going up in the air, can you also explain what is the process of inflating the Aerostat? What does that look like? What is that process?
Basically, you lay out the envelope on tarpaulins to keep it protected from anything sharp on the ground. And it has been purged of all air. You actually use a sort of vacuum cleaner to suck any air out of it, because any impurities reduce lift. And so then once you've done that, you start to fill it with helium, initially quite slowly. Once you get a bubble of helium forming in the material, and the whole inflation has to be done in one go, the helium bubble forms, then you switch on the air blowers that inflate the ballonnet and pressurize the air system inside the Aerostat. And they then get fully inflated, except the fins. And as soon as the Aerostat achieves its shape, you put it onto its mooring system with all the mooring lines attached. Then you inflate the fins last.
Speaking of the inflation process, we have a never before seen time-lapse video for our audiences to witness the remarkable inflation of our Aerostat in Mozambique. So this is the video that's coming right up. So we're back with Gregory Gottlieb, head of aerial platforms, who's walking us through some of the processes of the preparation for an Aerostat inflation, but also launch. So can I ask, once you've inflated it, how do you know that it's ready to launch? What are the signs that you're looking for before you actually decide, now we're going to launch the Aerostat?
Okay, so as I said, when we were talking about the inflation itself, part of the process is to attach the rigging to it and to attach all the equipment, the avionics equipment to it, the lights and all that sort of thing. Then once it's inflated and it's put on the mast, as you can see it now, you go around adjusting and checking each one of the lines, the ropes, making sure that they're the correct length, they have even tension on them, make sure that the winches are functioning properly, all four of them. And then once everything's ready to go, you do a lift check, an initial lift check. To do that, you release the aerostat from the nose connection until it's 10 or 15 meters above the platform. And then you allow the tension to be taken up by the main tether. And then you measure the amount of tension on the tether. And there's a tension gauge built into the tether, which tells you how much excess lift the aerostat has.
Oh, that's amazing. And then you were able to see how far is the first ascension?
For the first flight of the aerostat, we generally take it right up to its full operating altitude. And we did that, in this case, 300 meters, roughly 1,000 feet. And it performed beautifully. It sat there very comfortably, no movement, absolutely rock solid. And then we move it up and down a bit to check the winch is operating correctly. And we check the auxiliary hydraulic system so that if the main hydraulic system fails, we know we can still winch it in. And yeah, it worked beautifully.
Wow, that sounds very interesting, and a lot of trials and testing to actually understand how it works. And it's great to hear that it's actually performing quite well so far, so good. So we're very excited to see the next steps.
So one of the things that was a bit of a surprise to me, actually, is that when we had the payload operating, we using the temporary power solution to test the payload, we knew we only had about 40 minutes of power to run the payload. And I had a number of phone calls I wanted to make. So the first phone call I made was to Mickey, our CEO. And I was surprised at how emotional it was. He answered the phone and I couldn't really speak for a few seconds. And that was something, because I realized the enormity of what we've achieved here. It's a first for Africa, but it's a first for the world as well. Using this technology that originally was used by the military for all sorts of different missions, it's the first time this technology has been used in this sort of way ever. And that's a huge, huge step. So the ability to make a phone call using the Aerostat as an airborne cell to somebody on the other side of the world was such an important moment.
Thank you so much, Gregory. Thank you for your time, your experience, and sharing with us your expertise. It's been really wonderful learning from you. The countdown continues, and we're getting closer and closer to witnessing history unfold. I hope you're ready, because we're diving right into it, the launch of Africa's first commercial Aerostat. Joining me is the visionary Mickey Watkins, CEO, and Gregory Gottlieb, head of aerial platforms here at World Mobile. Gregory, Mickey, welcome back, and what an honor it is to share this moment with you both.
Hey, Hannah, always great to see you. And yeah, definitely, what a moment.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Very pleased to be here.
Wow, it's beautiful. Wow, look at that.
The logos look beautiful, by the way, on the Aerostat. They really do.
Look at the sun, look at that picture, beautiful.
That's Michael. who was running around a bit.
How many people were on the ground at the moment?
More than we needed, because it was a first launch. We had everybody there, so about 15 altogether in various different places.
Look at that camaraderie.
Flight director, stand by for winch operation.
And we used radios for the first launch. We don't normally use radios, but we just wanted to make sure everybody knew what was happening.
Flight director, you're approved for Aerostat launch in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Commence winch operations.
The winches.
There she goes.
Close hauls running.
There she goes.
Yeah.
We have main feather tension. Release close haul lines. Passing 100 meters.
Excuse the pun, the tension must have been high at this point.
Yeah, it was about 170 kilograms, actually. No.
Secure for flight operations at 300 meters.
Look at that view.
It is beautiful.
And here we are at 300 meters.
Yeah.
And look at the antennas. Look how incredible they look as well. Did a good job there.
They are extraordinary, those antennas. Of course, they have to be fitted upside down on the Aerostat, compared to on a normal telecoms tower.
Bringing telecoms to the skies.
Absolutely. Hello, Mickey. Mickey?
Gregory, you're not calling me from where I think you're calling me, are you?
Well, actually, I am. We've finally got it going. We've done it. This is me from Africa calling over the World Mobile Cell. How about that?
This is brilliant news. Well done. A lot of hard work went into that. How's the signal?
And yeah, I mean, it's just as it would be if I was at a normal cell, any sort. And the quality is really good. Everything's working as it's supposed to work. I happen to be standing close to the Aerostat at the moment, but there's no reason why I shouldn't be quite a few kilometers away.
No, epic. Well done for finally getting it up and running. This is exciting. This is the first commercial telephone call on an Aerostat in the world, I believe.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, a lot of people have put a lot of time, effort, and energy into it. That's for sure. But and it's actually, I guess it would be as clear as a bell. I mean, why not? But it's a really emotional moment, actually, Mickey. You know, you've put everything into this, and everybody has. And so I'm very happy to be able to make this call to you today. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to do it.
Thank you, and yeah, it's a wonderful moment for us, and it's not just me, it's all of us, the team, the community, the sharing economy, and this is one big moment for World Mobile.
Absolutely, but yeah, we've got quite a few phone calls we're going to be making over the next hour or so to a number of different people, just to make sure that everybody knows we've done it. But the first one had to be to you. And you know, it's the weather is beautiful. The Aerostat is beautiful. Yeah, it's a great day.
Epic news, fantastic part of my day. Thank you very much. Keep up the smashing good work, and say hi to everybody there. And I owe them a cup of tea or a whiskey, whatever they prefer.
Yeah, come and visit us, Mickey.
I will be there soon.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Take care.
Thank you very much, baby. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
This is quite an emotional moment, Mickey. What message would you like to leave our listeners today, especially those who've been on this journey with you from the very beginning?
We will never leave anyone behind. We're here to connect everyone, everywhere. Man, woman, child, whoever needs a device, whoever needs to be connected, we're the ones that are going to make a big dent on this, and hopefully the ones that are going to be one of the largest contributors towards the unconnected and serving the underserved. We can't do this alone. That's why we've chosen to do it via a sharing economy. And you know what I always say, together, we're unstoppable.
So thank you both for sharing this moment with us, your insights, your knowledge, and your passion. Obviously, the sky is not the limit, it's literally just the beginning. Thank you both so much, and looking forward to our next section, the AMA.
Wow, what an incredible moment and what an incredible event so far. I just want to take 30 seconds to say a huge thank you, not only to those of you who are tuning in live, but to the countless people behind the scenes who have made this happen. From the senior team, including Mickey, Alan, and Gregory, to the team on the ground in Mozambique, who've worked day and night, as we saw, in preparing the Aerostat for launch, and also the World Mobile Marketing and Design team, who've worked tirelessly to deliver this event to you tonight. Our incredible host, Hannah, head of production, Holly, Zach, Lily, and Emmanuel, and a huge shout out to our video editor, James Sims, who's poured over literal terabytes of video footage to create this outstanding production tonight. And he's not finished yet. We've got more to come in 2024, which I look forward to sharing with you. Mickey, Alan, Gregory, how are we feeling?
I think someone wrote a comment in the chat, cutting onions. I've got to say, the hairs of my arms, I've seen this before. I've been part of this since the beginning, but it's a very emotional moment for everybody, for us, I believe, for the community, for the regulator, for the people in Mozambique using the service. Very, very emotional, very exciting, and worth all of the effort.
100%. Right, let's get to the main event. And I'm going to start with a question that came in ahead of the event from Joe in the ENO Telegram group. And he asks, is there any plan at the moment to deploy more aerostats in Mozambique?
Not just Mozambique, Pan-Africa. That is the plan. As we're gathering all of the information, the data sets that we need to, making modifications and adjustments of this particular aerostat, learning what we're learning. We've already learned a lot, of course, launching in the United States of America, in several places. And also Gregory has a world of experience behind him launching aerostats. But
well, me and my team, yes.
Gregory and his team. And actually being able to do this is actually preparing for a Pan-Africa, pan-global launch of aerostats and other high-altitude assisted platforms.
And ahead of Operation Air Nodes and the opening of remote air node operation, another question from Joe was, will on-ground air nodes be set up in Mozambique?
Over time, yes, for sure.
And also asking, will OPAN be available in Mozambique?
You have to ask Mike. You're Mr. Embargo. 2024 will tell.
Okay. And let's move swiftly on. Is there any plan from the partner side to deploy aerostats on-ground air nodes in other countries based on the same partnership structure?
Yes.
Exciting. Okay, and moving on swiftly for the chain, what are the next steps for the aerostat? When will people in Mozambique be connecting on it?
Well, people are connected to it right now as we speak. When will it go into full mass use? Once we've collected the data sets and we're happy with what we see. That's not to say we're unhappy now. It's just we're going through a section of understanding all of our assumptions and validating those. So we're looking into February, March, before we really see something quite special.
Okay, and this question I think is for Gregory. The Bluffer has asked, is the aerostat tethered or will it move across the country?
No, all aerostats are in fact tethered. If it wasn't tethered, it would be either an airship or a balloon. I've said balloon, so I have to put a dollar in the pot now. But it's an aerostat, and aerostats are tethered. That's what makes them so persistent and special for what we're trying to do.
Okay, and Andre Sipos has asked, how much does an aerostat cost and how long does it take to pay off?
Well, I can tell you that there are big aerostats and small aerostats. There are sophisticated aerostats and simple aerostats, and they can range from 2 or 3 million up to 20 or 30 million, and even more, depending on what you're going to use it for.
And Prashant Bisht has asked, when will Mozambique be live in WMT scan?
That would be telling.
Okay, Gregory, how long does an aerostat last and how often does it need to be replaced? That's from Andre Sipos.
Well, different bits of it require maintenance as in any other flying vehicle. So there are components that need to be changed out from time to time. The major part of it is the envelope, the balloon material itself. That's another dollar. So essentially, that depends where it's deployed. In the Northern Hemisphere, where you don't have much ultraviolet, it can last for 10 years. And near the equator, more like 5. But it depends on the specific material you're using. But that's just a case of swapping out the envelope. The aerostat itself can be there indefinitely.
Okay, and I'd just like to add to that, please, Mike. Part of the data sets we're getting are understanding the difference between flying in a colder environment in the United States of America, an environment that is unpredictable and temperamental, as is the rainy season right now, and then understanding what we need to do to bring the commercial cost of these aerostats down. Because right now they're usually used for military purposes or borders, not for communications. So there hasn't been a need to bring the price down because governments are paying for this and they have a specific purpose. We want to deploy thousands of these across the globe. So what part of the data sets that we're collecting now are allowing us to understand what we need, what we don't need, and just really fine tune it to be a flying tower.
A really interesting question from Richard. He's asked, can you explain how you solved the electricity supply needed for the aerostat?
Sure.
Sorry, all of these questions seem to be coming in my direction. There are two sources of electricity for the Aerostat in Massingir. Massingir has a good mains supply, but occasionally they have power cuts. And once the Aerostat is operational, you have to have constant power. So for the moment, we're using mains power to power the Aerostat for most of the time. And then we have a standby generator with an uninterrupted power supply to provide power during those periods of power cuts.
Okay, and another question here from Luis Fernando Maestro. What is the usage rate of the Aerostat? So I think that's forward-looking. What would be the maximum usage rate of the Aerostat?
Well, that's one of the data sets we're trying to gather. Sorry. It's one of the data sets we're trying to gather. But because the Aerostat does not actually use energy in order to fly, once it's up there, it's up there. And so once it's flying, it's pretty well consistent. Sorry, Mickey.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if the usage through the throughput of the data is the question there, or whether the usage of helium or the usage of electricity. But all in all, they're pretty beastly devices, these Aerostats. And by the way, I haven't said the B word once yet, Gregory. You have. So I think we've corrupted you. But the usage is the throughput, the antennas that we're building with the University of San Diego, with James Tagg's team, and with others. They're really quite powerful. So usage of these Aerostats, we should be able to connect tens of thousands, if not plus 100,000 people to each Aerostat.
So really great questions coming from Arifra. How is the locals' attitude towards the Aerostat? Gregory, I know you've got some really good insight into things that have been happening on the ground in the village.
This has been one of the joys of being involved in this project, because the village itself has a population of about 200 or 300 people. Massingir is a little bit bigger, but the village where we're deployed, 200 or 300 people, they have really shown their support and enthusiasm for what we're doing. When the regulator INCM visited us, the village leader, village chief, held a meeting of the elders, and the regulator spoke to the elders, and then Mike Nwele also spoke to the elders, and then I spoke to the elders, and they asked lots of really good questions. But they're so enthusiastic about this, because many of the families in this part of Mozambique, the young men go to work in South Africa, and they have to repatriate their income in South Africa. And if they do it through the traditional banking system, it can take as much as 3 months for the money to reach their families. If they can use electronic banking, which they can only do with connectivity, it's instant. And so they're really hoping. They know that it's a trial, but one of the biggest questions was, we know it's a trial, but can you please tell us that you're going to stay after the trial? Because we really want you to be part of our community life.
Connecting the unconnected, banking the unbanked. A question from, is it Wayne Bishloa? How populated is the area that the Aerostat covers? I think you touched a little bit there. There's the village and then Massingir, but what about the wider area?
There are a lot of villages. Every kilometer or two, every mile or two, there's another village along these dirt roads. And if you look at the entire catchment area of the Aerostat, which is potentially out to a range of 70, 75 kilometers, that's a large number of people.
And another question for you, Gregory, from Richard. How is the payload protected against weather conditions?
Well, the Aerostat has a rain sleeve around the bottom. So when it rains, the water actually flows off before it gets to the payload. The current payload that we're using at the moment is designed to go out in the open air on the top of a telecoms tower. It's a standard tower radio. And so it's also weather protected. And so with the more specific payloads that we will use operationally after the trial in the future, we will design it into a weatherproof casing.
Okay, tell us a bit more about the payload and specifically the antennas. We could see them there, couldn't we, on the launch footage when the Aerostat was at 300 meters, and they looked incredible.
Well, they are actually, because this is a proof of concept, all we're doing is demonstrating the technology and gathering the data sets. We're using standard telecoms equipment, and that equipment has been provided by one of the normal suppliers. And so it's a standard tower set that we put on the Aerostat. We had to turn the antennas upside down, which raised a few eyebrows, but that's the only way we can mount them on.
Yeah, just to add to that. So part of the data set gathering is, okay, what do we get with standard antennas, standard radios that are off the shelf? What do we get with the World Mobile antenna that's we haven't seen yet, but you will see shortly? What do we get from different types of antennas on these aerostats in these environments? And although it's similar to New Hampshire, it's not at all similar to New Hampshire. So tuning it for this particular area is really important, and having all these different assumptions validated is also just as important.
Okay, and Andrew Sims asks, could solar power be considered in terms of powering the Aerostat?
You'd need a pretty big solar power array, but there's no reason why not. Andrew Soper, who's our resident renewable energy expert, he's already looked at what we needed, and it's surprisingly not so much of a cost. So as we look to deploy these across the globe, pan-Africa, then we will most definitely be looking at alternative power sources.
Okay, and Andrei Shiposh has asked, what measures are in place to prevent the Aerostat from being stolen or damaged by criminals?
Gregory?
Yeah, well, it's quite big. It's 25 meters long and about 18 meters high. So you'd need a pretty big getaway van. But in all seriousness, one of the things we've noticed in the village, we don't have a security fence around it as such. We have some wooden posts with a red and white tape. And not a single member of the public has crossed that tape since we came to the village. And that's a testament to the way in which the villages are organized here, in that the village leader is also one of the people securing our site, and he's told people don't cross the tape, so they don't. That doesn't mean there isn't any crime. Of course there is, as there is everywhere, unfortunately. But the Aerostat itself can't really be stolen as such. The tether is incredibly strong. If you manage to get to the tether without our security team, rugby tackling you before you got there, you probably would find it very difficult to cut the tether because it's super strong, stronger than steel, actually. And this particular site is always manned. So we always have team members monitoring the Aerostat and the telemetry from the Aerostat.
And when you bring in the local community who value being able to watch football, who value being able to transfer the money, who value being able to educate online, who value all these different things, the last thing that they want to do is to have any damage happen. One of the beautiful things of also having the local community is that it's theirs. They're getting paid to look after this area. They're actually involved. They're part of this sharing economy.
And in fact, to follow that up, Mickey, we have 4 local hires who are trainee Aerostat operators, 2 of whom originate from the actual village where we are, the other 2 from Massingir itself, and they're working every day with us to learn about how to operate an Aerostat.
It's incredible the impact that it's having on the ground out there. A couple of questions from the Bluffer. How did the members of the GSMA Foundry react to the launch?
They loved it. Of course they did. This is a huge problem. Half the world is unconnected. Aerostats are a solution, and we think probably one of the better solutions for connecting rural areas. But they also know that Aerostats can function in urban areas too. So for them to be able to see us come through with what we've said we were going to do and actually connect people and show up on all the systems, then they've loved it. They've been super supportive to everything that we're doing. And I'm looking forward to Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, where we will be highlighting with them what we've done.
And another question from the Bluffer. Are there similar initiatives to MAV 100 in Africa that have approached you and asked to work with you?
Lots. Lots, not just in Mozambique, not just in Tanzania, not just in Nigeria, not just in Kenya, lots. And the queue is getting bigger and bigger, and we're quite limited to what we can take on. We're 100 people approximately, a little bit more at World Mobile, and we've got to be super focused on what we're doing. But it is a pleasure and a joy to see how many people, since we put up this Aerostat, since we've laid down a functioning sustainable sharing economy in Zanzibar, and now that's growing elsewhere. It's an honor to be contacted by the companies that are contacting us and the people that are contacting us wanting to be a part of this sharing economy and to deploy. Pakistan was a big experiment, right? But we knew Zanzibar was no experiment. Zanzibar, we knew it was working. And then to give the sharing economy to Pakistan, all of a sudden, it opened up the eyes to a lot of people. And there's a lot of word of mouth, right, going around, so where people are saying, hold on, I can put 6 nodes on my house or 10 nodes on the hotels that I own within this area and be part of this sharing economy. So it's consistent and it's getting more and more.
Speaking of word of mouth, we've had a question come in that says, has there been a lot of word of mouth on the ground in Mozambique in the way of marketing, not just in the village, but further afield?
I think from the regulators, from certain ministers, from the partner that we will reveal shortly, that we're working with, there's word of mouth from that high level, but also on the ground, there's word of mouth. People came from different villages to watch the inflation, Gregory, I think you said.
Yeah, just add to, I just attended an event for the International Telecoms Union that a lot of regulators gathered in Dubai. And word of mouth is one of the key factors here. Is once you've actually done something that you're the first to do it and to demonstrate it, then everybody's interested and they all want to understand how it can also help their communities and their population to get access.
Yeah, we got a question from the Germ who's asked, are we offering the service provided by the Aerostat for free to the villagers?
It's not for free. It's within a partnership. And we're just thrashing out all the different commercials now so that we can keep this going in Mozambique, but also take this again across Mozambique and Pan-Africa, probably with our particular partner, but then also with other partners. So free, no, they're paying for the service, but did they have service before? No. Or did they have poor service before? Yes. Have they got excellent service now that's very fast? Absolutely.
And a question for Alan from the Bluffer Q. I would like to know from Alan Omnet, as a COO, what was the biggest challenge launching the first ever Aerostat in Africa?
There's no single challenge. I think a whole set of challenges compounding is probably the biggest challenge, in that you plan for many eventualities, but there's always things that will appear. What has got us through it is the team, the perseverance, the determination of the team. That really makes the difference. There's no challenge that we've faced that we have not been able to overcome, whether it's the journey to the site, to working with the local regulators, working with the local communities. Everything has been a pleasure to face, and it's testament to the team. Also, I've got to say the leadership of Mickey, throughout this process really drives, and it's been a pleasure to do this together.
Thank you.
And Gregory, you've been in Mozambique for some time now. What's been the biggest highlight for you outside of the launch itself?
Getting lost, actually. I had to go and test the signal cross country. There are not very many roads once you leave the one road to Massingir. And I went driving through the part of the Limpopo Park, National Park, and there was a road on my map which wasn't there on the ground. And so I had to find my way through, bumped into a big farm complex. Some of the scenery here has been beautiful. And there was a South African farmer running the farm, massive, great agricultural enterprise, quite a long way from Massingir, near a place called Chokwe, where I was still getting a signal from the Aerostat. And he knew all about the Aerostat. The Aerostat was too far away for him to see it, but everybody for miles around knows all about what we're doing and wishes us well. And that was really quite an eye-opener. So far away from it, he'd heard all about it, which was great.
Incredible. And a great question from Richard, who's asked, do the regulators in Mozambique consider World Mobile a Web3 project? And if yes, what is your main learning considering Web3 and regulation?
I think Web3 has got a long way for people to fully understand even what it means. I think from our point of view, it's about that education and understanding the benefits. You know, a lot of people, what does Web3 bring to Mozambique, to a project? And when you can talk about it in terms of a sharing economy and delivering connectivity, then and people see examples of what it can do, then they understand it. So I think this is a learning experience, and a lot of other regulators are now obviously interested in what's happened at Mozambique, and now they're sharing that knowledge, and I think it's a great place to spread that.
And a great question from Prashant, who's asked, has the launch of the Aerostat attracted any ISP in Africa for the sharing economy?
Many, whether they've offered to help us to have the fiber that goes directly to the Aerostat, or whether they've wanted to take the sharing economy into their own hands. It's put World Mobile on a different, as Alan just said, it's opened up the eyes of a lot of people. They kind of understood the sharing economy with towers on people's roofs. But when they see something so big and so powerful and so strong as an Aerostat that can broadcast so far and connect so many people, they then look deeper and they say, okay, well, actually, these are parts that we could be part of. So many.
And a question from Wayne, who's asked, who are the owners of the Aerostat? Is it World Mobile and the village? Or, you know, what does the structure look like?
Well, World Mobile are the owners of the Aerostat currently. That's not to say that when OPAN is live and the Aerostats go on there, that World Mobile will continue to be the owner of this Aerostat. But as we're producing all the different data sets that we need to be able to produce and that we want, it will stay in World Mobile's ownership. But we have a vision where every part of a mobile network or a fixed wireless access network will be owned by the community. And that's been my vision since the very, very, very beginning. Of course, we need to prove it out. We need to show that it's robust. We need to show that it can work. And then we open it up to the world. A network run by the people, for the people, and owned by the people.
And speaking of the wider Web3 community, the Bluffer has asked, in the covered area, are there any Empower houses that will benefit from the coverage?
Not in this covered area, but we plan to maybe move the Aerostat a few times, or bring a different Aerostat that can be moved more easily a few times. Empower is a project that we respect. We think they're doing a wonderful job, and we have an agreement to provide them with connectivity. However, I think that considering the space that they're in, an Aerostat isn't for every environment. There's more economical, viable solutions out there, and we wouldn't just put an Aerostat up for the sake of putting an Aerostat up. It should go in the right place to connect the right amount of people. So probably air nodes will be used in conjunction with the collaboration with Starlink in Mozambique for Empower. But as they grow and as they move forward with their projects and they start to cover more areas, then at one point, of course, an Aerostat signal is going to touch them.
And speaking of Starlink, has there been any chatter from the Starlink team? Does the team see World Mobile as a complement to their tech and their efforts?
Yeah, they're very proud of what we're doing. We speak quite regularly. They support us with different aspects of the network, and I think they've all thumbs up for World Mobile, and they're hoping that we can do something wonderful, maybe in a way that they don't do something as broad as what we are doing right now, let's say. Starlink is fantastic. It's been brilliant for us in the middle of nowhere. You've got all of a sudden 300 megs, 600 megs that you can just plug in. And that's an incredible achievement on its own. And for an individual business, a hotel, Starlink is a great option as well for backhaul to propagate Wi-Fi. But for the individual in the village who's only spending $2.50, who may have power problems, who may not have the facilities in order to be able to run a Starlink, that's where the collaboration comes into place. That's where the use of Starlink is at its best, because we can take a Starlink and then propagate that to 1,000 people or 2,000 people, or take 2 Starlinks and propagate that to 4,000 people, with individual billing for each person. So we're very thankful to Starlink and the ingenuity that they've innovation that they've put out there.
So what's next for World Mobile in Africa? There's been a lot of focus recently on the US and Pakistan, but what are the plans for 2024 for World Mobile's African efforts?
Continued growth, a sustainable sharing economy, just like the one we've produced in Zanzibar, just like what we're seeing in Pakistan. Increased partnerships, and just to allow the sharing economy to go on its own, which is what it's been invented. It's what we've created. And that's always been the vision. Not that World Mobile will roll out everything, because actually, even if we had 10,000 people or 80,000 people like T-Mobile, and that many trucks, you can't fix this problem alone. You can't fix the fact that 800 million people are not connected to the internet. So continued growth of the sharing economy, deployment of nodes by the people, and supporting that until the point that we don't actually need to support it.
Okay, moving away from Africa, what's the latest from Pakistan and what's happening in the US at the moment?
Pakistan's growing very fast. I think you can see that on WMT scan. It will continue to grow. USA is the third place that we've really focused on. Reno, our zones, our licensed FCC areas, and then other areas for fixed wireless is where we're heading. So deployment, get Reno right, make sure that it is right, and then open up OPAM for the entire of the United States of America. Get down 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 nodes over the next couple of years at least, potentially more. And then all of a sudden, we're a force to be reckoned with in the United States of America. It's the biggest market in the world. Everybody recognizes achievement there. And that's what we plan to do, so that then we can come in and we can go anywhere and open Operation Node up anywhere.
And moving back to Africa, Richard has asked, is there still an Aerostat present in Zanzibar, or will it be moved?
There is an envelope present, ready to go in Zanzibar right now. The envelope is what you're looking at right now, over your right shoulder, over my left shoulder. And there is the ability to be able to launch an Aerostat when we're ready, and when the regulator is ready. It was always my dream to have Zanzibar as the showcase of what could happen with air nodes on the ground and the Aerostat working. You would only need one Aerostat to cover maybe 80%, 85% of the population there. And then you need the ground network to give the capacity. So the dream is still alive, and the regulator we're very in good conversation and in good spirits with. And I think it's helped. It's helped that they've seen that other places want these Aerostats, that other places are willing to go. We stayed there for so long because that was the story for me. That was the story that I wanted. But I'm just as happy, if not happier, to have got it up finally in Mozambique.
And João Pedro Costa, we're in Africa, we're in Asia, North America, but are there any plans for South America? He's asked about Brazil in particular.
Brazil, very interesting environment. Interesting from a Web3 perspective, and interesting, of course, for coverage. Massive. But remember that 2024, 2025, we should have a flight on a stratospheric high-altitude assisted balloon. We should have a payload tuned for that. So as soon as we've got those, all of a sudden, bigger countries become even more viable to provide that connectivity. But yeah, Latin America, absolutely everywhere. The clue is in the name, World Mobile.
And speaking of high altitude assisted balloons, Gregory, what's the latest from the HAPS Alliance?
Well, I introduced World Mobile in a presentation to the HAPS Alliance a few weeks ago, and there's a meeting coming up shortly Next year, we'll be starting to get much more involved in 2024 in the 3 main committees that the HAPS Alliance runs, because we don't just want to sit back and be passengers in the development of high-altitude assisted balloons. We want to be part of the process and helping to evolve them in the right direction. And so we're going to be, when I can get out of Mozambique, we're going to be much more active in the HAPS Alliance.
And Richard has asked, are there still talks about the blue economy? He really loved the idea of connecting ships.
Yes, Gareth Hamer put a lot of work, and our team put a lot of work into making that happen. It's still a mandate for the president of Zanzibar, who we're in good relationship with and good contact with, and things are ongoing.
Okay, so I think we're coming to the end of our open AMA. We'll hang fire for a couple of minutes if there are any further questions. But as we move towards the end, Mickey, Alan, Gregory, have you got any kind of final words or summary of the experience so far, and also looking forward to 2024 and what's next for World Mobile?
Quick personal thought is, Gregory, you've been an absolute champion throughout this whole process, and congratulations on achieving this huge milestone. You've been on the ground and making it happen in some very challenging temperatures and circumstances, and so well done, Gregory.
Thank you. I'd like to sort of bounce that back and do one other thing. I'd like to thank both of you, Mickey and Alan, for trusting in me to deliver this and to put together the team to do so. And it's the team I really want to speak about, in particular our flight director, Kevin Watson. Whenever the Aerostat is flying, Kevin is on standby, day and night. And he is responsible for the safety of flight and for putting together the rosters and making the Aerostat do its job. It's sometimes quite thankless in very difficult conditions, and Kevin has been doing it for many years, is a highly experienced flight director and somebody who has really made this entire thing possible as the key member of our team. So thank you to Kevin, thank you to you, Mickey and Alan, for enabling us to bring Aerostats into a new rebirth of uses in the world of telecommunications.
Thank you, Gregory. I'll reiterate what Alan said. This feels like a love fest, but you've been the goalkeeper, right? You've been shot when you let the goal in, and celebrated when you've saved the ball. And
I'm more of a rugby person, to be honest.
We've won this one. We won this match. My thanks goes out to everybody, right? Every single person, from Natasha, the finance lady who's had a grueling effort in working with Mozambique, to Ermelinda, for example, Mike Nele, Magnus, of which this wouldn't be possible without this team. Every single person at World Mobile. But I think my thanks goes out even more to our community, because you're the ones that made this possible. You're the ones that inspired us to make this effort and to continue this effort when it was so very difficult, when everything was facing against us. I always knew we would do this, and I know where we'll be in the next 2, 3, 4 years as a company. But the community, you're the ones. You're the ones that deserve this moment. You're the ones that have made this happen. Thank you.
That's a fitting end to an incredible event, an incredible team, an incredible community. Together, we're unstoppable. Good evening. Thank you all.
Over, but not out. Thank you.